Get set, podcast listener, and be ready to win with your mentor, motivator, and marketer, Cam Roberts. Grow your business and achieve your goals quickly with the latest tips, tools, and tactics on business, success, and marketing. Subscribe now and download your free resources at camroberts.com.au.
Hey everyone, Cam Roberts here. Thank you very much for joining the podcast today. I have a very special guest, Andrew McConnell. Now, Andrew's story is not your typical Silicon Valley fairy tale. He's born in Birmingham and he was raised in a neighbourhood built on a former tobacco field with a population of only 50,000 people. And he then managed to graduate from Harvard College, Harvard Law School, the University of Cambridge, all with honours, and more recently has become a best-selling author and is the author of the new book, Get Out of My Head, which has become a Wall Street Journal bestseller. So, Andrew, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Cam. It's great to see you.
Hey, that's a very impressive bio, and congratulations on the best-selling book. That's a great achievement. So well done on that.
I really appreciate that.
But you have a very interesting story and quite a long bio there, and I see you've also become a member of the US Open water swimming team, earning a bronze medal in the process, along with a whole host of other things. So before we kind of kick off about, getting out of my head and mind ownership, can you share a little bit about yourself and, how this journey started for you?
Yeah, it starts with birth and then you kind of go from there. But I think growing up for a long time, I saw myself mostly as a swimmer and an athlete.
Yeah.
And then it was actually while I was in college, I got injured and wasn't able to compete at the same level. And I had to kind of reframe my identity. Who was I if that wasn't what I was first and foremost, because I wasn't competing at that same level.
Right. Yeah.
And got much more focused on academics. And so did better in college, got to law school, did graduate school, and ended up in management consulting, went to McKinsey and Company for a number of years, worked all over the world, met my wife who's British, and then got the startup bug. And so started companies now 10 years ago. So I had a company, Vacation Futures. There was a vacation rental marketplace. I had a fund that leased up properties all over the world. We had several thousand properties all over the world for vacation rentals. And then now I run rented.com that I founded that does pricing and revenue management and vacation rentals. So kind of a combination of following my passions, seeing opportunities, and then, besides the day job, going and writing a book of saying, hey, my life really has gotten much better with a lot of these practices and principles. Is there something I can share with others that they could also benefit from?
Excellent. So you have a wide range of experience from sport to academic into consulting, and then being a successful author. So where did the idea or the concept come from to write a book?
Yeah, I love writing. So I've written more than 60 articles for Forbes and Inc. and other outlets, and realized a book is just a lot of articles with a coherent theme. So that was kind of one side of it. And it was when COVID was first hitting in the US. So kind of Q1 of 2020, it was very isolating. You weren't in the office, you weren't physically getting together with people. And so a lot of my friends from college that normally I would have just texted with or maybe emailed every few months, I would actually pick up the phone and have conversations. And then, this was before Zoom got super, super popular. And one of those conversations, a friend of mine who had been in real estate ever since college commented that we were going to have a, quote, generation of perpetual renters. And he was talking about how over time, with the financial crisis, with COVID, with all these things hitting, you were going to have a whole generation of people who never were able to build the wealth necessary to buy their own home. And it was this great investment opportunity for really rich funds to buy up properties to rent back to them. And that really hit me and sat uneasily with me. And then I looked around where in the US, we were living tweet by tweet on what our president was saying or doing at that time. We were looking at the news cycle. We were checking case counts for COVID. and thought, well, the actual much bigger problem isn't this generation of renters for real estate. It's that we've all become mind renters. We have an entire society of people who take this one asset that all of us own, which is our mind that we get from birth, and yet we give it away. We give it away to people who don't even know they have it. We give it away to events that aren't even real people or things. We just give our mind to that, and we're left just renting the remnants of what's left back from that. And to me, that was a far bigger tragedy, and kind of digging in why is that and finding the science behind it and how to solve that became a big passion of mine for the past few years. And so that led to this book.
Excellent. Now, I know in the book you talk about mind ownership, and you mentioned it there just quickly, but I'd like to go back if we can and dig into that a little bit more. Like, what is mind ownership, and, what can people do about it to protect it, if anything?
Yeah. So we think about owning something, right? And so you think, well, I can own this desk, I can own this computer, but any physical thing we can own can break, can over time degrade, or if you're a Russian billionaire, can be taken away, right? We can see whether it's the state or somebody else, somebody can rob you, they can take things away. You don't truly own it. You're just possessing it for a time. Even our physical body, right? We've gotten past the idea of slavery, but you can get hit by a bus and your physical body can get hurt. You can get a virus, can get inside your body, and your physical health can be taken from you. And so you don't really own that. You just possess it for a period of time. But your mind is something that if you know how to exercise, you truly can control no matter what's happening around you. And there are pretty incredible stories from history and contemporary examples of people put in harrowing circumstances, from prisoners of war to concentration camp victims, or concentration camp prisoners, because they wouldn't say they were victims because they own their mind through it. That regardless of what's happening in the world around, your mind is the one thing, if you choose to, you can actually own. And so that's where this idea of mind ownership comes from, because it's the only thing you can own. Right. And yet how our brains have evolved as humans defaults to the opposite, defaults to us focusing on single issues that are kind of the worst case scenario. We're most likely to jump to these things and have our heads spin out. And you hear all the time of, oh, I can't get this out of my head. I can't get that person out of my head. I can't get this event. I can't get out of my own head. And that is a universal problem, but it is one that, because it's a universal problem, for thousands of years, people have been coming up with remedies for it. And so that's really where each chapter of the book concludes is, hey, there's a remedy to this. Here's what it looks like, and here's some exercises. Here's a worksheet. Here's a practice you can start putting into place to take that ownership back and maintain it. Because that's the other piece. It's not a one and done exercise. It's work to maintain that ownership.
Yeah. It's like, training the physical body, right?
Right.
It's going to happen all the time. And, correct me if I'm wrong, like even if you fix it today, next week you're still at a challenge or at war with information that's coming to you via the internet, via TV, via the news. Bad news sells, right? So, you've got to be mindful of all of that sort of stuff. So how does someone, take that first step, like, without kind of, exposing everything in the book, but how does someone take that first step for mind ownership? What are one or two little tips you can give people?
Yeah. So one place to start is really with your time, right? And so a line that hit me, it's not in the book, I came across this after, but it just really resonated, is if you don't know where you want to go, it's unlikely that you're going to get there.
Yeah, that's good.
And it's with your calendar. If you don't know how you want to live your life, if you don't know how you want to allocate your time, other people are going to make that decision for you. Yeah, you are not the owner of your time. And so the first step is just to clean slate design, say, hey, an ideal week, an ideal month, an ideal day. Here's how much I want to sleep. Here's how much I want to work. Here's how much I want with my loved ones or my friends and not on devices, and break that down. And then look at it and say, okay, is that more than 168 hours a week? Because if it is, that's unrealistic. I need to actually decide, what are my priorities? What am I going to cut? And go in with a very clear-eyed assessment of where that time's going to go. And so that's the first step. And then putting those, what you value and prioritize, building your life around that, and then sticking to it and tracking it. The other piece, so your time is one place, but studies show that 47% of the time, our mind is not where our body is. We're thinking of something other than what we're doing. So putting the time into is one thing, but then you have to start tracking, is my mind present? Is my mind here with what I'm doing? And anyone who's tried meditation or anything, the mind is just like a monkey jumping everywhere. You can't control it, but what you can do is notice once it starts digressing. So you say, okay, I told myself I'm going to get this hour at dinner with my family, no devices. And I catch myself, man, I'm really thinking about what my boss said right before I left the office. I need to decide, am I going to stop this dinner and go work on that right now? Or am I going to say, yep, notice that. That's something I need to go work on later tonight. Let me come back to this because I'm not going to do anything productive with it. Let me be present here. And so if you're going to start somewhere, I think it's start with the time and then start tracking your mind against your time to really make sure that you're living where you want to live.
Yeah, that's really good. And so what are some of the, I guess maybe mistakes is the wrong word, but what are some of the mistakes or challenges that you see people make, when they don't manage their mind?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest mistake is not to think about it, right? You just kind of wake up and go about your day. You look at your calendar and you've given the right to book your calendar to someone else. And so
Right,
each day, each week is designed by someone else. Your life is a product of what you've given other people. You already gave them ownership, and then now that's what you've left. And that's probably the most visible manifestation. There are a lot of people, I think, that under and sometimes overvalue themselves. I think understanding what your value is to yourself, and then understanding what your value is to the market in different circumstances, and that's not static. You say, okay, like my value is someone who can go do handiwork in the house, is probably negative, right? People should have me pay them to go do that because I'd be terrible at it. I'd create a mess. I wouldn't be productive. But me as a writer, or me as a CEO of a tech company or a founder, wow, that's very different value. Or me as a consultant, that's very different value. And so recognizing that you as a person, just like when I was an athlete, my identity was I am an athlete.
Yeah.
And when that was done, I had to rethink who am I? Who is Andrew? Am I one thing, or can I be many different things in different circumstances? And so really thinking, how do you value yourself? And then how, whether that's monetarily or otherwise, do you move up to have others value you in a more commiserate way with how you value yourself?
Yeah, that's really good. So what's your spin on habits? Because I hear you talk about, you thought you were a swimmer, and now that you're not a swimmer, who are you now? That sort of thing. Now, do you find that people get into good or bad habits, based on how they think about themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I think that you see studies on that kind of thing, of people who see themselves as a smoker, but they're trying to stop smoking, versus people say, oh no, I'm no longer a smoker.
You're right.
I'm no longer a drinker. I'm an athlete. I exercise, right? And so knowing me, and I think there's most people, if it's a decision when I'm tired, when it's hard, I'm going to go with what's easier. And so for me, exercise daily is not a decision. It's in my calendar. This is what I do at this time.
Part of you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me personally, I love meditation, and meditate. That's not a decision. It's a thing I do. And if my family gets up early, my daughter comes and sits in my lap and we do it together. And so for me, I guess that's part habit and part of just like taking that decision off and being deliberate of who do I want to make myself? How do I want to build my life? And let me craft that in terms of time and mind and pieces and build around that instead of the other way around.
Excellent. And where do you see, this area in the next 5 to 10 years? Do you see it changing? Do you see it evolving? With global financial crises, with world news events, getting harder to rent homes, all that sort of stuff. Where do you see this going for people?
Without people deliberately addressing it, it's going to get dramatically worse. So to put some numbers behind it, every second the human brain can take in 11 million bits of information. Over that same period of time, our conscious mind can process 50 bits. And how we're defaulted, if you think about when we're hunters gatherers, we're out in the savannah and there's a beautiful blue sky, there are giraffes grazing in the distance, but there's some rustling in the bushes. What 50 bits do you think the people who survived focused on? All the beautiful, nice things going on, or the thing that could kill them? And And even if the stuff rustling was a muskrat or it was wind, it was the people who thought it was a lion and acted on that stayed alive. So those are the genes that we inherited. Those are the genes that came to us because those are the people that lived. And so our mind is defaulted to say, hey, we can only take this tiny bit and we're going to focus on the worst case that even maybe imagined. Because in the tiny 0.001% chance, it's going to keep us alive. So the problem why it's getting so much worse is in 2017, more data was created than in all of human history prior to that year. And every year, the pace of acceleration of data creation is going up. So it used to be, we just had the newspapers, and then we had the radio, and then we had television, and then we had streaming and social media and your phone that's always in your pocket, and just going up, up, up. And so it's going to be more and more difficult. It's not going to get easier to be able to take that focus, take that mind, and not default to giving it away with all the noise that's coming in around you. And so if you don't, again, if you don't know where you want to go, it's unlikely you're going to get there. Right? Because other people are making money off of taking your attention.
Of course.
Do you want to let them do it?
Yeah, of course. So that's a really good tip, and I'm a parent, and many parents struggle with, devices and kids. So like, do you have any sort of strategies about, how to manage your mind when it comes to social media? Because let's face it, and I've shared this with my children, is that on the other end of that social media, that web browser, whatever, is a psychologist team, is a team of psychologists, behavioral psychologists, and they're employed to keep you on that app or website for as long as they can and hijack your time and, as you say, hijack your mind. So, when we are up against that as an individual, what are one or two things that we can do to kind of step away, step back, turn the device off, protect ourselves a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I guess there are two different sides of that. One is thinking about how much time do you want to give it, right? When you go through and design your day or your week, is there time that you want to give? Hey, I do want to give 20 minutes a day to Instagram or Facebook because I want to stay in touch with my friends, and it's an easy way to kind of keep track. That's a decision to make. For me, mostly kind of for business reasons, or the reason I'm on social media. So I'm not a very good consumer of social media. I use it mostly as a pushing mechanism to get messages out there for work or for hiring and other things. And so I just think about how am I using it instead of it using me.
Yeah, that's good.
And how do I want to engage? So those are two different ways to do it. Of how much time, and then how do you want to engage with it?
Excellent. Very good. Now, Andrew, we're almost out of time, but before we wrap up, do you want to share a little bit more about either the book or how do people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about what you do and how you can help them?
Yeah, probably kind of on both. My website, andrewmcconnell.com, so just my name, is the best to get in touch with me. And also you can get a free preview of the book to see if it resonates. There's a workbook that comes along that has all the different exercises. It's free download as well for anybody interested. And then you can find me on Twitter at M.A. McConnell, at Instagram at Andrew McConnell. LinkedIn is probably where I'm most active. So yeah, definitely reach out. I'd love to have this discussion with anybody that's interested in taking that ownership back.
Excellent. And we'll make sure we put all of those links in the show notes. So if you're listening to this, just check the show notes and follow up Andrew and link up with him, and connect with him and see what he's got for you. So Andrew, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Cam. It was great to see you.
Cheers.